popular in some circles.
And then on NBS Sport?
On NBS Sport, that is Soccer Lounge.
Soccer Lounge.
Last time I felt like in an interview.
You need to inform the viewers. So we need to get Charles and find out what he has for us tonight. Charles, what do you have for us tonight?
Oh yeah, will she resign or will she not? That's the question.
No, we have moved.
Eh?
We have moved now.
To
desks and chairs of billions. That's how quickly we move. That one has survived.
you know, Uganda is like a 24-hour series.
Yes.
A 24 series. Before you understand one episode, the next one starts.
So you keep moving. That one has survived. Now we are looking for chairs of billions.
We're looking for chairs. We're supposed to look for that guy who apparently was tattooed on the chest.
That one. He has changed stories. There's a new one now.
There's a whole package of things to discuss on the front line tonight.
You know what they say in Russian? Uganda lemwa.
NBS Frontline. As the Presidential Affairs Committee gets underway with its probe into the Karamoja Iron Sheets scandal, Ugandans have learned that miracles still happen. Iron Sheets miraculously landed in Finance Minister Matia Kasaija's compound, while others found themselves atop Minister Amos Lugolobi's and more shed.
I'm totally innocent. I never asked for the iron sheets. The iron sheets found themselves in my compound. And I said, where are you coming from the office of the Prime Minister?
The jokes and laughter over 21st century miracles soon took a somber turn as the Select Committee report on the state of affairs at NSSF was concluded and tabled on the floor of Parliament.
We are discussing a very serious matter on NSSF. The minister responsible is not here.
Mbaka's report calls for immediate resignation of Gender Minister Betty Amongi and recommends sacking or investigating for a larger chunk of the NSSF top brass as follows. Former MD Richard Biarugaba, Acting MD Patrick Ayota, CFO Stevens Mwanje, and Head of Marketing and Corporate Affairs Barbara Arimi are to step aside pending investigations by the IGG. Head of the Business Development Geoffrey Waiswa Sajabi to be fired immediately for nepotism and lack of qualifications.
The committee therefore recommends that the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Betty Amongi Ongom, resigns in public interest with immediate effect.
I will not resign. I will not resign. I did not commit any wrong.
The fund may have to get a new board after the committee found that the current one fell short in safeguarding the workers' money and interests. And this is just a snippet of the recommendations in the damning report, all of which begs the question, how many of these recommendations can actually be effected? Is the report enforceable, or was it just another political grandstanding exercise? On a wider scale, we wonder if the situation is so dire in the NSSF, an institution universally praised as one of Uganda's best managed public institutions, how bad is it in others where the rot and incompetence are more obvious? This is The Frontline. Frontline.
The drama around the National Social Security Fund, what was supposed to be a retirement, has turned into this drama, where the report, I'm looking at it here, 562 pages of it, recommending that everyone should be swept out, from the board to the management to the minister. But the minister says she will not resign. On the NBS Frontline tonight, I am Charles Mongu Shampagi, and let me introduce, to begin with, the Honorable Betty Amongi, Member of Parliament and Minister for Gender and Labour and Social Development. Very nice to have you.
My pleasure. Good evening, viewers.
I have with me from the National Resistance Movement Secretariat, I have the Honorable Emmanuel Lumala Dombo. He's almost becoming a frontliner because he's here quite a few times. Very nice to have you, sir.
Charles, thank you very much. Good evening, my fellow panelists tonight.
I don't think we have had you since the year began, have we?
I don't remember being here. That's a pleasure that I'm here tonight.
Very nice to have you.
And good evening, our viewers.
The Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda represents the people of Kira municipality. He's also a member of the Forum for Democratic Change and the Frontliner. Very nice to have you, sir.
Thank you, Charles.
And from Soroti City, I have the Honorable Jonathan Ebwalu. Honorable, thank you for making a return to the Frontline.
Thank you.
Yes, we've had you here once.
Thank you.
Very nice to have you. And I want to start straight with the Honorable Betty Amongi. Will you or will you not resign? The report released in Parliament asked that you resign.
You see, when you make a report, it must be backed by evidence, especially when you are making a critical recommendation that touches the integrity of a person. The basis of calling for my resignation is a proposal I made in the budget, and Section 29, subsection 3 of the NSSF Act gives the power to the minister responsible for social security, which is myself, to approve or appropriate the budget. And that particular section is very clear. It says the minister shall approve the budget and can vary, can reject. If you bring a budget, I have the power to reject. I have the power to amend upward or downwards. And so in that context, by the time they brought for me the budget, they brought for me the budget based on the old strategy. Unfortunately for them, for me, I was a new minister who had been given a new mandate under the new law. And the new law that had been assented to in February 2022 had given me key strides, one of which is to expand social security. Originally, you would only remit if you have a company employing 5 workers and above. The new act now removed that provision and allowed for mandatory contribution to start from one employee. 2, it opened up what we call voluntary.
Honorable Minister, that detail is not in contention. What is in contention is that you asked that 6 billion of that money is sent to you, to your office,
and that is why,
able to run.
And that is why I'm based on hearsay, based on sentiments, you will get a backlash. The evidence attached to the committee is the evidence of the letter I am approving with the budget.
And what are you saying in that letter?
In that letter, I am saying I am approving the budget for NSSF. And as discussed, because we had sat in several meetings with them, expansion of social security.
Who was to manage that amount of money?
The Minister of Gender approves NSSF budget.
Yes,
and therefore when I approve
6 billion shillings in contention,
it is for NSSF activities. And my letter, if you have that report.
NSSF activities run by who?
Run by NSSF.
By NSSF.
Because NSSF runs NSSF activities, but I'm the supervising minister.
Yes.
So when I'm approving their budget, I give them strategic guidance as a minister. And my strategic guidance was, I'm approving this budget on condition that you give me activities to scale up expansion of social security.
What do you mean? Give you activities? What does that mean?
No. What I'm saying, if you bring me a budget,
yes,
and the law says you have examined the budget and you have realized that there are certain strategic goal, you as a political leader feels that it is important for your sector. The law gives me the mandate to amend the budget. The framers of the law realize that because I don't participate in initiating the budget, there will be circumstances under which I will find certain things missing which are of importance.
Yes.
Then I ask you to go back and re-examine the budget, integrate it, and bring it back for the final approval. So that's what happened.
So you are the supervising minister of NSSF. This report by the Mwine Mpaka committee, who should actually have been here with us tonight, is recommending you disband the board, which came in around the same time you came in, is recommending that the former managing director, Mr. Richard Byarugaba, and his deputy, who's now acting as MD of NSSF, are investigated by the IGG with a view towards prosecution. It is recommending that all top officials of the secretariat that runs the NSSF be dismissed or sent to investigation. Isn't it a failure at your ministry as a supervising minister? All this chaos started under you.
First, I was not the cause of the amendment of the law. All the things that have been unearthed by the committee happened before this law was amended and before I became a supervising minister. However, ministers do not have the same style of work. I might be a person whose judgment is different from the judgment and analysis of the person who was there managing the fund before. So for me, first, Ministry of Finance did not have the infrastructure of Social Security and workers. But when the fund came to me, where the rationale for bringing it back to the Ministry of Labor was to prioritize the issues of workers, the issues of Social Security, which is the primary role of NSSF. Then as a minister, I had to introduce new initiatives that correspond to labor-related aspect, which is expansion of coverage for Social Security and all the other issues of compliance. Because you cannot invest that money if it is not collected from the workers. But because finance has been supervising, they don't have the Department of Labor that knows the technical expertise. When I came, my advice became different from the advice that the technical team in finance was giving Honorable Kasaija to manage. That's why I straight away realized that the budget that was being approved for this long time was not prioritizing activities of compliance, activity related to social...
The question, Honorable Minister, and I want to bring the other panelists in here, and we also go deep into the report itself. You did interface with this committee.
Yes.
And the other members did interface with the committee. You explained your decision to defer or not to reappoint Mr. Richard Byarugaba, and this is what the report says. Deferral of reappointment of Managing Director, National Social Security Fund. On the 7th of December 2022, the Honorable Minister for Labour deferred the reappointment of the Managing Director, citing a wide range of issues which needed to be investigated before Mr. Byarugaba, reappointment could be considered. The issues and the responses thereto are tabulated as hereunder. Number one, it is observation. The allegation, financial impropriety relating to pension towers. Byarugaba's response. The original contract was Uganda shillings 329,539,938,357. The current contract amount is Uganda shillings 335,289,939,081 shillings. Variations 1, 2, and 3. The project contract amounting to Uganda shillings, but is yet to be signed. The project contract amount would give the total variations to date, or a 23.91% within the PPD allowance of 25. This is 23.91% within the PPD allowance of 25. What did the committee find? The minister provided no evidence to the committee in support of the allegations. You made
all those things I have read.
Yes.
The committee came up with 26 or 27 recommendations.
Yes.
Of that, about 7 touches on the former managing director related to mismanagement. In my letter, which was the basis of the committee's investigation, they found from my 19-page dossier about, for example, the issue of compliance, where they have recommended that a whole department of compliance. Number 2, suspense account. It's in my letter, where the committee has said 57 billion was found to be in suspense account, remitted by employer, and the employees' names are not attached to it, and it is prone to abuse. They even cite monies that are being drawn and had been drawn from the suspense account. That was picked from my letter. The issue of smart card was in my letter. The issue of pass was in my letter. So a number of issues that the committee found Richard Byarugaba culpable were picked from my letter.
I can see one of them here.
What you have read, which the committee tabulated, and by the way, interestingly, the only person's tabulated answer is only Richard Byarugaba. Even me, the minister, who defended myself with the law, they never picked any of my answer and tabulated it. So that is, that one, someone can make their own conclusion. But I wrote to the committee, and I told the committee that the evidence I have, the select committee was constituted after I had already written. And so
what about, you've explained your own part of the recommendation. You said you will not resign. What?
Provision of fair hearing is very important on my side, not now as parliament, but as a minister. I cannot just condemn, that is what people mentioned in that report, working with NSSF, do not have the same forum that I have to respond on my behalf. So I will proceed when the report is debated, whether it will be adopted or not. If it's not adopted, there will be no cause of action. It's the report, go with it to cabinet, and then cabinet will examine, give guidance, then I report back to parliament.
Okay, that is on the strength of your position that you will not immediately resign, because that's what they recommend.
Of course I will not resign.
Of course
because I have not done anything wrong. Even if, by the way, even if that money are going through the processes and the procedure, because if I add a budget as a minister, then it now goes back. Can
I start with the Honorable Bwalu and ask, the minister here has been asked to resign. The board is supposed to be disbanded, the board of Peter Chimbowa. The top managers, the MD, the former MD, and the acting MD are supposed to be investigated by the Inspector of Government with a view towards prosecution. The board is supposed to be among the many recommendations, 29 of them, as the minister said. Among them is SIVA, the relations between the MOU between NSSF and labor unions, COFTU and NOTU, and that board is supposed to refund money it received. I think some other members received. And what do you make of that report and its recommendations?
First of all, I want to thank you, my brother, again for inviting me to be part of the Frontline. I want to say a procedure to name the select committee, which has done an excellent job. I want to say that the appropriation, legislation, representation, and the oversight role, which we have done here. I want to say that the minister, my senior sister, what is in the report? Yes, you may be right in some areas. But the question that we are asking, you are implicated in 2 areas. Number 1, you know that your ministry is given money through appropriation by Parliament. So under which law were you again asking for these 6 billion shillings to be given to your ministry? Under which law?
I did not ask for it.
You know?
No.
Could you, Honorable Minister, allow him make his submission?
But you see, that is the narrative that has been created to distort the facts. You read for him the section of the law.
But the report exactly picks exactly that.
No, it doesn't.
Yes.
The report has not brought the section 29.3, which empowers the minister.
The investigation by the report and the recommendation is to the effect that you asked for money
why I'm saying
from the budget.
They did not
for that
give,
reason,
there is no single evidence. You look at the attachments.
Honorable Minister.
No. Where I am directing, that's what I am asked
reading,
from all.
We are reading what the report says.
But when we are now
the report
here,
says it found you culpable.
And I am
in
saying they don't
the
have
6 billion
evidence.
Shillings. So can we have Jonathan continue?
Okay, like we said, now that is number one. Number two, the minister says that all the that has been exposed in NSSF happened before she joined. Get any money and share among themselves. They forget that this is the savers' money. This is hard-earned money. It is not money. It's not even taxpayers' money where you can play with. It is not even taxpayers' money. This is the savers' money. Where I tell the Honorable Amongi here that here is my 100 million. Kindly keep it. I will be getting it over time. Maybe give me 10 years, I will come and get it back. And then you start spending my money the way you want. The Honorable Minister here, together with her directors, it is very clear here that these people spent 1.8 billion shillings among themselves. The minister here is said to have received 250 million shillings. The board too, each received 403 million shillings. And then the other directors received 500 million shillings. Now, these are the four you came in as a Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development. But by the time you received the 250 million, I thought you were in the ministry.
I did not.
By the time you asked for the 6 billion to be given to your ministry, you were already a minister.
No, for record, I did not receive 250.
Minister, how much did you receive?
I never received any money
from
problem. NSSF.
You see, the minister, what you're talking about here, a situation where you find a particular person in one department you find you're supervising your niece, you're supervising your brother-in-law, you're supervising your uncle, you're supervising your who, and we have a minister who is in charge of that ministry. So what are you doing? What is your role as a minister in that ministry? The
minister says she whistle blew.
Yes, that was finance.
She whistle blew.
Yeah, whatever she did, what did she do about it? Problem.
Thank you.
Why does she wait for the select committee to come up? Let me tell you, it pains a lot. The most honorable thing, I want to say it here, that the minister can do, not only to save herself, but also to save the savers' money, is to step aside.
Okay.
Because I have no
you called for finance, not for me.
No, I'm coming also there.
Yes.
I'm coming there. I'm coming to the Minister of Finance, where I also have issues with the committee. I think the committee should have done more work, especially when it comes to the Minister of Finance. You see, that there were 2 members who were illegally appointed to the board. They were illegally appointed to the board. And the committee rightly noted that they were illegally appointed to the board. Now, my question now here is, if at that time they were appointed by the Minister of Finance, these people have been held accountable here. But since we are going to have a debate in the Parliament on Tuesday, we are going to have a number of amendments in the recommendations that the committee has recommended.
Thank you.
But overall, I want to tell our people that what is happening in the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development is just telling us how corruption has eaten our system as a country. See how the ministers are going to rob the iron sheets. The Karamojongs are used to raiding from Teso. Now they have been raided. Now you see how painful the raiding is. Now let me tell you.
You know, Karamoja, we're only discussing iron sheets. We're not discussing the goats.
I'm just coming to say that one, the corruption, the way people are going to take our money. This is savers' money with impunity as if there are no institutions of government that are checking corruption. They go away with it. If the select committee had not been put in place, these people would have continued eating their money until the minister would also live there. Another minister comes, eats, and leaves.
But there was IGG and Auditor General before.
Would you not take into account what the minister said, that she wrote a dossier of 19 pages pointing out some of these issues?
My problem is you cannot write a dossier at the time investigation has started. What has she done?
No,
what action did she take when she was the minister?
Let me answer you. No, that one I cannot let it pass.
Yeah.
Let the Honorable know that NSSF has been under Minister of Finance, not Minister of Gender. Number two, me as the Minister of Gender, I'm the one who wrote the dossier. When I wrote the dossier, I consulted severally over 3 months, and I don't want to say who I consulted, until we came to the conclusion that we must investigate. By the time the select committee was being put in Parliament, the executive branch had already instructed, last year, instructed Auditor General and IGG because of the realization that we must get to the bottom of the matter.
What do you say, now that you decided to respond to this, what do you say to people who say that actually the spark that started off all this chain of events is because you needed money, Biaruhanga was not playing ball, Biarugaba was not playing ball, you wanted to get him out so that you could get a more pliant person.
No, they actually...
And that the chain reaction is what we are seeing today, bringing out a lot more things. And people questioned and said, you're the minister. You have a 62-year-old deputy managing director whose term should have expired by the reason you gave to tell Biarugaba to resign instead of renewing his contract. But you had renewed the 62-year-old's contract. Biarugaba becomes 60, and you invoke age as the first reason why you can't renew his contract. And then people go back, supporters of Biarugaba say, no. You know, the reason is the minister asked for 6 billion. We found it irregular. We refused to give her the money. She decided to push Biarugaba.
So let me tell
how do you explain that?
Yeah, what spark of the chain of investigation was actually the budget. And I gave the committee all the documentation.
And the budget, the contention on the budget was only the 6 billion?
No.
Yes.
It's actually 6 billion was not in contention. 6 billion became contentious after Biarugaba was not renewed.
So
what was the cause was the 400 billion and the 112 billion, which I rejected. In the budget, 400 billion was meant to buy land in Nachigalala. I rejected. Why? I asked Richard Biarugaba to give me the titles for the land because it's a new investment, to give me chief valuer's valuation report and a due diligence report. He didn't give it. I removed it from purchase of land and moved it to fixed income. The second budget was 112 billion to construct office complex at Yusuf Lule Road. There was a petition from internally from NSSF staff who gave me a dossier. By the way, all these things, majority of them, the dossier came to me from inside NSSF. But that's why I had to protect the staff from NSSF, because they were the one blowing to me. So that was the cause of all this problem. So when I rejected those two, I became a target.
A target of who?
A target of people who felt
the people you're supervising.
The people who felt that the 400 billion needed to be in the budget. Actually, if I tell you the number of trips I had to make on that, I was even sponsored to go to London to negotiate on the 400 billion, and I refused.
Sponsored by who?
No, I don't need to tell you who, but I'm telling you that what ignited this whole issue, because I had already many issues from the staff on pension towers, on Loboa, on other things, but because those are projects that are investment and is under finance, I did not take action. But I would tell my colleague silently that, can you take a look at this? But because I didn't supervise...
Honorable Semujunganda, your take. You've seen the report. Did you move the motion that this debate is deferred until next week? Did you?
Me?
I don't know. In Parliament.
No, what I had suggested to Parliament was to suspend sittings until we have resolved the issue of iron sheets. Because in my view, I told Parliament, I regard the Honorable Nabanja, woman MP for Kakumiro, now as a suspect under investigation. I said, but she also has to appear in Parliament as head of government business to answer. And I said the government cannot be led by a suspect, lest the report of Parliament first come out. If she's exonerated, then she assumes, she continues. But NSSF, no. I met the Honorable Amongi in Makerere. We did political science together. I was doing journalism. I like her, but let her know that it was always going to be very difficult for her to remain virgin and married. You join the group that is rooting Uganda, and for you want to continue claiming you're innocent. The main job of this government is to identify what to root, and they are doing it effectively. And that is one area that is missing in this report. Because I have asked colleagues, I don't think Amongi is so strong that Museveni can direct her reappoint Byarugaba and she refuses. Because they are parading those letters in the report. His Excellency said you reappoint. The Prime Minister said you reappoint. It is not possible that Amongi refused. There is a story in that report and a story about this whole saga that is not told. Along the way, Amongi is in Kapeka with Salim Saleh, who holds no recognizable offices in government. But they are in Kapeka.
Wasn't it Emmanuel Dombo who created that office for him? He said, a national leader without title. I think the last time he was.
First, Museveni says, you reappoint. And they're saying Amongi did not. Prime Minister says, you reappoint, and she did not. And out of naivety, the committee thinks maybe that Amongi is such a defiant woman that she has defied all these. And that's where, for me, the story is. You see, Mr. Museveni and his group he has assembled, they are just gang raping the country. And Amongi, please stop pleading innocent. You joined them knowing that that's the main activity in that government, rooting. So you cannot say that you went there and you are not rooting. That's what that government is doing. It is now very difficult. You have a vice president, prime minister, minister of finance, everybody, they are under investigation for disappearing in Mabati. There is nobody, let me tell you, that cabinet of Museveni, they are all guilty until proven innocent, all of them, collectively.
You have inverted the rule on innocence.
They are all guilty, all of them collectively.
Including your...
All of them, I have said everybody. So if you go where they are ganga raping, if you go where they are ganga raping, you cannot say for me I was just watching.
She says she can't attack you because you're friends.
Yeah, I am not attacking her, but I have told her even privately that the day you chose to go and join a group that is ganga raping the country, you are also collectively guilty. This NSSF, I have read the report, and I want to commend them. They have done a good job, but the good job that they have done, say someone was doing research for academic, so they are not behaving like a political institution. The whole of Kapeka, because Saleh is involved, it is missing in the report. The role of Museveni himself is missing in the report.
What was his role? He's not... there was a meeting in Kapeka. There isn't mention about a meeting in...
where do you live? I don't know how many meetings Amongi has held now with Museveni. Even the one of Nabanja. Please don't say you did not. Even the one of Nabanja, both of you have spoken about it. You ended up in the State House, a meeting with Museveni. So
over NSSF.
Over NSSF, they have met.
I'm not aware.
You have met Museveni more than 3 times over NSSF.
I'm not aware.
Even in the report, your own testimony is that you are saying, you first hold on until I have had a meeting one-on-one with His Excellency. I hope that one you will not deny.
That one I have not seen.
No, you deny. You deny that.
It's in the report.
Read the report again.
That in your testimony when you appeared.
No, I didn't testify.
Read the report again. Maybe I'm saying things that you did not read yourself. You are saying you hold on until I have had a one-on-one with His Excellency. That is in the report.
I think
so this whole story just represents a fraction of how far Mr. Museveni and his group have gone in mismanaging the country. In all these things that we are suffering with, the other day I was offering advice on how to improve the office of the Prime Minister. And that goes also to the Honorable Amongi. The office of the Prime Minister is supposed to be coordinating government programs, but it is in procurement, sending money on phone. And the Prime Minister is very happy that I'm sending money. The minister responsible for NSSF, I think, should stop at policy. But when you go into small details or even of investment, there must be a layer that has capacity and sophistication to look at the investments, to stop them or to authorize them. Because I guess NSSF do investigation, they consult.
Is it not supposed to be the responsibility of the board?
They consult. That board of NSSF, maybe with the exception of maybe the MD of National Water, the rest are all individuals who are looking for handouts.
There are 2 PSs.
Riomoki, those ones I can excuse because they are already gainfully employed. But the rest are human beings who are looking for opportunity. And that's why you've seen requests, give money to trade union. And Riomoki is feasting.
And the trade union said the money never arrived. No, it arrived, but he withdrew it. I think that was the testimony of the secretary.
That can be all part of what they are supposed to be receiving. Even when you look at the way the board is solved by dissolving the board, the problem is resolved by changing the qualification and appointment of the board. If you bring these little souls that you pick on the street to go and...
Let me put a quick question to you before we take a break. And Honorable Dombo, kindly bear with me. I'll give you enough time shortly after break. Where is the saver in all this? Because NSSF, unlike departments of government, does not have a single shilling coming from the government. But the way it's been managed over a long period of time, it is the workers that are supposed to be saving money there, which money is being shrunk by inflation, that are the losers. And I'm trying to locate them, including even on the representation by the workers' unions, because I don't know how many savers actually unionized or contribute how much. The major contributors to NSSF are in any union of any sort that is represented in the board.
I was saving with the NSSF before I joined the parliament. And I think the greatest mistake that was committed is to allow people who serve there to be represented, in most cases, by people who don't even serve there. These people from Nutu, Koftu, what. All those are criminals who should be chased from NSSF. And the companies that are profitably run, and they are the ones who make the 10% contribution on behalf of their employees, they are all missing there.
Okay.
And you have Riomoki, you have... I mean, even when you look at those fellows, you will disband them immediately. But they are the ones who are presiding over 17 trillion shilling with no capacity. And that's why they are quarreling.
17.8 trillion.
Riomoki has abused me, so and so has quarreled with me. That's what they are doing there. So that board needs to be disbanded immediately.
How did you assemble that board? You'll answer the question after.
The problem is not solved by dissolving these ones and you bring others. It's just by raising the qualification and competence of who sits on that board.
Let me take one message from an old man called Chris Tushabe Karobwa. He's in Fort Portal. He says, the minister says she never received the money, but she asked for 6 billion. Isn't asking itself not wrong? Her not receiving could be when time comes. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll start with Honorable Emmanuel Dombo.
NBS Frontline. When do I get to meet with my MP? Members of Parliament hold regular consultative meetings with their constituents to update them on the activities of the government and gather their concerns, including those being discussed in Parliament. Your MP must seek your opinion on issues that concern you and bring them to the attention of the government. Your Member of Parliament is your representative. Make your voice heard. This message is brought to you by the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda.
Work, work, work. Work's over. Busy Bite, get down to snack business. When snacking is under attack, we'll be there to fight back.
You will always know when you're in the presence of the finest. It's like time slows down, just enough for you to feel everything in full flavor.
Tusker Malt Lager, now in a distinctive new look. Frontline.
You're still watching NBS Frontline, and we're discussing the report of the Parliament Select Committee of Minempaka on the National Social Security Fund. It's now difficult to put a finger to exactly what sparked off this chain reaction. What we knew initially was that the renewal or non-renewal of the contract of Richard Byarugaba, who was the managing director, sparked all this drama that we are seeing. The minister says no. Things started earlier, and then she became, people came for her blood. I think that's the word you used. Somebody called Cook, and he says he's in Kira. He or she's in Kira says, when the minister appeared before the committee, she denied any knowledge of the letter. Today, she's praising herself for the same. The letter, the 19-page dossier, I think, is what she's responding to.
That's not true.
And someone called Ebwalu is lying. Says the 1.8 billion is he is attributing shillings 250 million to Honorable Mongi. He is not disbursed yet. He doesn't know the report he's talking about. I don't know if that money has been released or not.
It is not. Huh? It is not. It was a proposal from Richard Byarugaba. Yeah. So that's why even in the report they found him culpable for initiating, and then he was saying the board put him on pressure. But when the board testified, the board said he wanted his contract renewed, so he offered them that money from their board meeting in Mbarara. Yes, to renew his contract. So he came back to start initiating it.
That's when one of the board members was saying, she was scrolling on the phone and saying,
exactly, yeah, that is the money. That is the money.
That is the money.
Yes, but it was not. It was not disbursed because.
Minister, is this your assertion here that as a supervisor of NSSF, this is how savers' money gets distributed?
No, that is why I am telling you that for me, as a supervisor, when I came, I wanted to put everything right.
Okay.
Now, on this other one of corporation...
I'll come back to you.
Charles.
No, hold it. Honorable Dombo hasn't said a word.
These people have received that money already.
We've been on air for an hour, and Honorable Dombo hasn't said a word. Let's hear from him. The drama around savers' money at the National Social Security Fund. And the report, the recommendation, the minister here should resign, the board should be disbanded, Biarugaba and Ayota should be sent to investigated by the IGG with a view to prosecution. The head of the finance department, I think, should be fired. All those recommendations, 29 of them.
Charles, I've been listening attentively. I also browsed through the report on my phone this evening and started wondering, because until recently, NSSF has been touted as one of the most or best run organization, and that would have been the basis upon which the recommendations for renewal of contracts of the leaders must have been based. But when you read the findings in the report, you begin wondering who was fooling who, and whether the people who are making the recommendations were well advised about what was happening in NSSF. When you look at the corporate governance issues of the NSSF, and you also look at the compliance and supervision, there is a part of the report where I read that banks collect money on behalf of the NSSF, but they only remit part of it. And nobody knows or makes a follow-up about what is happening. Secondly, that there are a whole 2 years that there is no report of compliance or supervision, and nobody knows what happened in those 2 years. And when you have had these observations, then you get a recommendation about how the caretakers or how the superintendents of NSSF are efficient and how their contracts should be renewed. I couldn't reconcile this in my mind when I read it. And when it came to the minister, I don't know how the hunter became the hunted. Because apparently when this matter was first came up in Parliament, I thought it was a minister raising issues that should be attended to. And now in the report that comes, you find that the whole situation has boomeranged on the minister, and there is a call, our recommendation by the committee, to say the minister must resign. What is true, and what the minister will need to explain when he goes on, perhaps on the floor, or even when he's on here, is that a budget is the end result, because there must be activities first, that must be planned, and then the activities are costed in order to get a budget later. At what level did the budget become quantified in order to become 6 billion? Was it after the quantification of the activities with the people who are responsible to do the activities? Or did you just come up with, did you just propose a lump sum figure, and then the activities would be fitted in according to the budget? Why not? Why 6 billion? Why not 10? Or why not 15? When I read through the report, I didn't find out how this would be. The other major problem also that would come up, if the NSSF funded the activities of popularizing or expanding or explaining the activities of the NSSF by the ministry, who would account for the money? And if the supervisor would be required to account the money, would this conflict with the corporate governance structures, where the person who is supposed to be supervised would be demanding for accountability from the supervisor under this arrangement? These are issues which I looked at the report and started wondering whether this is proper. And I totally agree with the committee when they recommended that the dual responsibility or the dual supervision of the two ministries should be properly realigned within the law.
Honorable Dombo, if you'll permit me, yes, I want to read from a letter written on the 4th of October 2019, addressed to the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, Speaker of Parliament of Uganda.
By the President?
Yes, it was received in Parliament on the 21st of October 2019. Confirmation of my decision to transfer the National Social Security Fund from the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development to the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. The Right Honorable Speaker, as you're aware, in September 2004, I directed the transfer of the National Social Security Fund from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development to the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. The main reason for this is that the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is the specialized government agency to oversee the management of such large funds. The ministry also has the capacity to review NSSF decisions and ensure that they are sound business-wise and free of corruption. I reaffirm my earlier decision on this matter. Now, this is a paragraph that speaks to what you're talking about. I do not agree with the proposal in the NSSF Amendment Bill of 2019 to split the oversight mandate of the NSSF under two government agencies, where the management of the fund would be under the purview of the minister responsible for finance and policy matters of the NSSF under the Minister of Labour, Gender and Social Development. The proposed arrangement would cause delays in decision-making and create loopholes for corruption. That's the President writing. I am therefore requesting that Parliament streamlines the oversight role of the NSSF under the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in the ongoing amendments to the NSSF Act. The Minister of Labour, Gender and Social Development is represented on the board of the NSSF. Multiple apex authorities are dangerous for accountability. If things go wrong, whom shall we blame? That's the question. Whom shall we blame?
You know, NSSF is a fund, it's money collected together for investment in order to help the people who are retiring or old people to use their money when it has multiplied. To the extent that that is a fund that must be invested, I totally agree with the President, the President's view. Because although the policy issues about the old people, or people who are going to retire, is best handled by the Minister of Labour. But this is not the issue dealing with the policies of how old people are going to behave or how they must be treated. NSSF is money collected together for investment. And I know there must be a number of success stories about social security funds within the region or internationally, from which you could benchmark and find out how come that NSSF has been recurring in Uganda for over now almost 10 years.
More than 10 years. Actually.
More than 10 years. What is it that we are doing wrong? And when you go to Tanzania and you find out most of the major projects in Tanzania have been funded by the NSSF.
Yes. By pension funds.
They have constructed the university,
yes.
They have expanded, they constructed the parliament, they constructed many government programs because these are available funds and government has the ability to collect tax once you agree on the rate of return.
So are you agreeing with Honorable Semuju that the problem is bigger than individual NSSF?
Absolutely. Even these recommendations, when you look at the report, you can find that its findings have been limited because of the time frame and because of the terms of reference.
Okay.
That's why, although certain things were not mentioned in terms of reference, like the historical perspective, perhaps it just comes out under the last recommendation, which says, the last term of reference, which says any matter as incidental to. Then they decided to go into the history, which had been discussed and perhaps investigated. So in our situation now, the first thing we must deal with is the governance issue. How are the funds going to be governed and managed? Secondly, on the issue of when you read this report, you just see that NSSF is in a state of dysfunction, that the board is in disagreement, is in disarray. They have convened meetings which have not ended well. They have ended up in almost near fight. They have ended up being intimidated, according to the report. You find staff being intimidated, that you have to take decisions because you must fear for the renewal of your contract. The whole report, when you read it, you discover there is a much bigger problem than what meets the eye, that perhaps in the future, it may even require a whole commission of inquiry in order to find out what the problem is.
That means I'll come to you.
Yeah, for me, first of all, I like Biarugaba, and I think they have done. If you want to judge someone, you begin by the targets. All those who are praising the workers, they don't tell us what was the target. The fund has grown. Wasn't it meant to be the target? There are bonuses. So bonuses cannot be a ceremony that at the end of the year you give yourself. I have not read that anywhere in all these letters flying around that these people were super performers. The target was this, but they
exceeded it.
Yeah, I want anyone to help me understand what target did they meet for them to now be described as.
The minister will answer. Joseph, let me thank Michael, who shared that letter from the president. Michael, thank you very much. Michael is in Entebbe. Thank you for sharing that letter. Joseph Burite is from Rwashamiri, and he says, I have an idea. Let government focus on pension funds for its workers. Let them start the public sector pension fund, and let's see how they run it. They should leave the private sector's NSSF to ask the workers to master and determine its fate. Thanks for the show. Honorable Minister, who is to blame? Who takes responsibility? You are the political head of NSSF.
Yes, I want to again reiterate that Ministry of Gender started supervision of this fund after the 2022 Amendment Act. All this time, the President's letter was working administratively. The fund has been managed under Ministry of Finance. So whatever issues has come out from this report, Ministry of Finance will have opportunity on the floor to explain. Two, the letter of His Excellency the President was before this Parliament. When this amendment was time-barred, there were a number of legislation that were passed in the last Parliament. Then when we returned, the late Right Honorable Jacob Olanya indicated that it couldn't be signed. So that was part of it. So it started afresh. And when it started, other meetings were held with the President. The workers themselves are the ones who justified to His Excellency the President why they wanted the fund back to gender. And it was my intervention that proposed, because I had read widely, and there was a KK report. Kironda Kivejinja had been assigned by His Excellency to lead a committee to look at how gender and finance would work. So I had read that report, and I indicated to the meeting that instead of returning everything to gender, there is this report of KK which indicated dual responsibility, where issues related to investment and finance and borrowing is with and declaration of interest is a preserve of finance. Then, because of the nature of the mandate of the Ministry of Labor, which is contribution, compliance, and ensuring that you collect the money, because you cannot invest what you have not collected. This money is collected from workers, and workers and laborers and employers are under the Ministry of Gender. So that's how the mandate was split, based on that report from
But
KK.
Honorable Minister, what is the burden of collecting this money? Because, I mean, workers, most workers I have interacted with and I've been working for some time, look at this as another tax. The drama, the mismanagement of the money, not just under what we are seeing now during the reign of Richard Biarugaba, even before that. And we have asked this question before. The previous management and boards of NSSF had to detour through Luzira prison. What exactly is wrong? Because, I mean, like Honorable Semuju said, there is no magic about collecting this money. Workers are compelled, employers are compelled by law. So they remit the money.
That is your assumption. But if I'm to tell you how many do not remit, there are very many.
Why don't they remit?
It's because nobody wants to depart with money. An employer would not feel comfortable to deduct that money. If you have 2,000, there are places I've gone to, they have 3,000 workers. You go into a factory with the sugar cane or with the tea, with the coffee, they have 3,000, 2,000 workers.
And for that?
And they tend to dodge. So they under-declare, and then you have to enforce through compliance. So those are...
So your recommendation was for mobilization. The variation in the budget,
yes,
of the 6 billion,
yes,
was for mobilization.
Yes, was
and
for...
yet the bigger problem, if they had been collecting from everybody who is supposed to remit, they would have surpassed the 17.8 trillion, wouldn't they?
No, the proposal I'd given was for two issues, expansion and compliance. Now, compliance, as we talk now, 200 billion is out there under contestation in court. 57 billion is in suspense account where employer deduct but do not attach the name of the workers. Let's say NBS deducts in block and say every month we are remitting 1 billion. But according to the law, you are supposed to remit with the list of the workers and the amount. Then when NSSF gets it, it credits into your account. But the 57 billion is where employers deduct. They send it and it is put in suspense account. And that is the money which I had queried because I had information of its abuse.
Are you saying in other words, that was like some kind of slush fund, everybody would go and touch as they wish?
Yes, and in the committee report you see that they are dealing with that. And that's why if you read my letter of the 6 billion, I proposed that let us put an online tracking system whereby you, instead of NBS deducting and just banking, you use that system to load your workers and bank the amount of money on the workers. So you will then not have the 57 billion lying in suspense account. You are the one looking and calling NBS, who are the workers whom you have sent money for. That one is called compliance.
Charles, basic clarification from the Honourable Minister. Because when I was reading the report,
and the other panelists, please feel free to...
The mandate of the mandate to approve the budget, like the Minister has said, lies with the Minister for Gender. But the budget does not only have operational expenses, it also has investment funds as part of the budget. Now, when does the Minister for Gender relate with the Minister for Finance in order to reconcile the money which is varied or not approved by the Minister for Gender, yet it is the domain of the Minister for Finance.
You talked about the land. You talked about the money for the investment in Nachigalala? Nachigalala.
Yes.
The 400 billion. Was that under your mandate or under the Minister of Finance?
It was under Finance. Now, what brings us together is the board. So what happens is the board is meant, there is a committee chaired by Finance. Finance committee chaired by Ochailap, who is Ochailap chairs investment, then Dr. Silva, Finance. Now, that committee is the one supposed to link with both of us and then send it to the board. And the board approves it and brings to me. Now, for me, in my scrutiny, the issue is if I sign a budget, the responsibility, if it backfires, it comes to me. So there are things in corporate governance or in budget approval that you require. So that 400 billion, while Finance, okay, at that time they told me Finance had approved. But again, when I asked Kasaija, then Kasaija said he had not approved.
But a committee chaired by a senior technical official from Finance had gone through that.
And now the biggest problem with that budget became that even the board disowned it. And yet for me, I'm supposed to rely on the board. But when I rejected it...
So would it be true that you're too many cooks in this NSSF?
No,
yes,
I think checks and balances are important. But in the middle, someone is supposed to do their work.
Someone is asking a question here.
Yes.
Enoch, Dr. Enoch, I believe this should be Enoch to Inoburio, is asking, kindly inquire from the Minister, number one, why you had issues renewing Richard's contract but swiftly renewed the one for Patrick. Yet they were one and the same, literally. Number two, had Richard retired, would we have seen all this drama? If he had gone quietly without a fight, would we have seen all this drama?
So let me start with the issue of why Ayota, why not Richard. Now, Ayota's contract ended earlier. And I made consultation and gave him 1 year transitional period. Because at that time, I was told, and I had interpretation from public service and Solicitor General, that once they clock 60 years, I can no longer give them the 5-year term. So we agreed that since this fund has just come to gender, we need the people who have been there for a transitional period. So he's expired in October, but Richard still had his contract up to December. Then I wrote a letter consulting further on the matter because I wanted to forward the opinion of the Solicitor General and Public Service and seek concurrence at a higher level. When that
higher level meaning where?
No, that one you don't need. I don't need to go to. No, I don't need to. No, I don't
higher
need
level,
to.
so are you asking?
So
we need clarity.
No.
Higher level is
Kapeka. It can be no.
So
we have structure of government. We have the Prime Minister. We have the Vice President. We have the President. So anybody higher than me, I can seek concurrence with.
Yeah,
we have
so
Deputy Prime Ministers.
That's why you went to Kapeka.
We have Deputy Prime Ministers. So anyway. Let me really settle this question very well. So when the letter came back, actually the letter that made even the report is attached in the report is replying to my letter. The letter from the president is replying to my letter and saying, let's consult. It's because I had notified him about Richard's contract expired in December. Ayota's contract has already expired and I have given 1 year, but I seek further guidance on whether to give them 5 years or to give them 2 years as a transition. And the president says, let's consult. And so we had that consultation about twice. That was probably October, November.
But when the president said, reappoint Yarugaba.
No, the president did not say reappoint.
What did
if you read that, if you can read that letter, the president was replying to my letter and said, let's consult. Because I had told him, yes.
Honorable Minister, if I could remind you, you were seated here on the show,
yes,
and this NSSF question had just started.
Yes.
If you remember, I asked you a question on that renewal, the renewal of that contract, and you said I should wait. You're going to make an announcement. You're going to inform the public what was going on. We never saw it. We saw this drama grow.
Yes. So. Yes. That's why I'm telling you, when you're a minister, you exercise delegated power. So I can't announce to you at that time that I'm doing this. I have to consult.
So you promised Ugandans,
like I'm telling Ugandans now, we have made several consultations on the matter, but because of several other confidential information that had come, we all agreed that let us have investigation, and we gave a timeline of between 30 to 60 days.
Honorable Minister, is it...
but you see, you are making me not answer his question. Why Ayota, why not him?
People have been asking the question. This is not government money. It is savers' money. Why aren't you forthcoming with the truth to the people who contribute that money to NSSF?
About what?
What is going on? You're talking about...
But that is what I am telling you, because the law that governs NSSF is
you're keeping a lot of things behind.
And that is, by the way, that is governance. That is management of the state. You are not going to expect a minister to sit on a show and tell you confidentially about its own money, about the governance as per the law.
No. We're talking about NSSF money to which government does not contribute.
So which money? Because at this moment, we are talking about the processes of government of appointing or not appointing.
And the evidence, Honorable Minister, the evidence of management of NSSF predating Richard Byarugaba, Ayota, Kimboa, and others is that that money has been abused under the supervision of government. That Chandi Jamwa David is in Luzira because of NSSF. that
Bakoko
Bakoro, Zoe Bakoko Bakoro, the former minister in the ministry you serve, is in exile over NSSF. That Onegi Obel ended up in prison over NSSF. There must be something fundamentally wrong with the way government has run NSSF, that you're still saying it is governance we can't explain to the public that contributes that money. I mean,
yeah, Charles, what I don't agree with that narrative. So you're creating an impression as if it is NSSF that it's only NSSF they are mismanaging. Vice President Professor Gilbert Bukenya was in Ruzira. That's where they took the same room where I was put during walk to work. Sam Kutesa, Kahamba, Nasasera, Rukutana, I forgot the other minister who was in health. They were all supposed to go to Ruzira. Why? Because of the way they shared the money.
Not over NSSF.
Because of the way they shared the money meant for organizing Chogam. And that's why I said earlier that when you isolate NSSF, it is as if this problem is domestic to NSSF. There is a problem with Mr. Museveni and his government. His ministers are like hyenas. One of them ran away with the...
The reason I'm putting this question to the minister is the minister said the NSSF budget needed to provide for 6 billion to mobilize contributors to NSSF. Employees are watching us on this show. What motivation are they going to have to continue remitting money to NSSF or negotiate? Like what happens? I'm sure your minister must have found out that employers negotiate with their employees and say, I pay you 1 million shillings, but we shall declare for NSSF purposes that I pay you 500,000. So you get more money coming to you directly instead of saving. And at the end of the day, you have a debilitated populace that doesn't have a fallback position when they retire. Honorable Minister, you have 97% of savers in NSSF at full term walking out with 13 million shillings. 13 million shillings, 97%. So the larger sums of money, yes, the larger sums of money are between that 3%. Those are the ones that get a little bit more money. Now, if you don't mobilize the public and tell them this is what is going on in NSSF, this is what we are doing to arrest the situation, this is how we are dealing with these things that we have found. Why are you trying to mobilize?
You see, I clarified to you the issue of compliance. I think there the public has understood clearly that compliance is important. That was part of the money, the 200 billion which is out there, where companies are not complying, the 57 billion out there.
That goes on the suspense.
That goes into the suspense account without names of workers was one of the areas that I wanted addressed. Because when I examined the budget, it was not providing for that. Expansion, it wasn't providing for that. So in my strategic thinking as a minister, I felt that how can I have 200 billion lying in courts? How can I have 57 billion lying in suspense account and we cannot address the matter? So I want savers out there to understand that the intention of my ministry as the one responsible for workers is to improve the way we make employers comply, is to mobilize them to make sure that they register, because a number of them also are not registered. They are not registered.
Charles.
So
yes, Honorable. Well, yes,
I wanted to finish the
yes.
question of the gentleman,
there was a
because
question,
they will think I'm
the gentleman
dodging.
Said,
the one of why
said,
IOTA, why not?
No, that you answered.
Okay.
The other part of the question was, had it not been, had Byarugaba resigned peacefully, retired peacefully, would we have seen this drama?
No, you see the issue, I told you that the issue about Byarugaba started with the budget. And also I received a lot of internal information, confidential from staff on pension towers, on Loboa, and I shared. And after sharing, it was, we would have probably done it quietly, but he opted to make it public. and blow it in social media.
So if you had handled it quietly, if you had decided to retire
we
peacefully,
would have, because there are so many investigations going out there quietly.
The question is,
you are investigated, you are
Honorable Minister, the
prosecuted.
question is,
yes,
if in December, Biarugaba had packed his
by December, we had already started that.
Because you had started the consultations whether you can renew or not.
Yes, and if I have that information from staff telling me that there is variation of pension towers to this amount, there is this problem. Loboa Estate, they are selling 4-bedroom house at 3 billion, another 3-bedroom at 2 billion. I walked there myself and saw, and I felt that the information I was given corresponds to the complaint.
Okay.
And I did a debrief, and we said, no, let us do a forensic audit.
We'll ask the question on what the exit out of this saga is. Yes, Honorable Jonathan.
Lies lives earlier before the truth, but the truth reaches faster than lies. Now, you coming out to write what is called a dossier doesn't mean you are innocent. And again, I repeat, this dossier should have come much earlier, not to wait for the select committee. Number one. Number two,
it is my dossier that the select committee used.
Yeah, Minister, you'd allow us to talk, then you come
But
in.
if you are misrepresenting facts on television,
number two,
sincerely,
the Minister, you are the political head of the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. There is total breakdown in the NSSF, and you are the minister, where people have turned the National Social Security Fund into a family social security fund. You are watching that. Where people are going to divide to themselves what is called the bonus, 33 billion, they divide among themselves, and you are the minister presiding over that ministry. You are watching them. Where people go and divide 1.8 billion shillings among themselves, and you are watching. Let me tell you, this money, the 1.8 billion shillings, has already been shared. It came in the budget of 2022-2023. It already came and they've already shared the money. That money has already been shared. It's not that they are
I see the committee recommends that money be refunded.
Exactly. So how do you refund what you have not received?
Let me open the report, actually.
Yes.
Let me open that particular one.
That is on the 1.8 billion shillings. And then when you look at it in the minister's confession, the minister confessed to the committee that Biarugaba had refused to include the 6 billion in the budget.
I did not confess.
In the report, which is here. So to me, what I see is that, just like my brother said, there is total breakdown of our institutions. It is not only in NSSF. That's why you see people can just run to the office of the Prime Minister, still iron sheets. People can run to the to the Minister of Health, still Global Fund. People can run to where they steal and go away with. They steal and go away with. That is what is happening in our institutions. Okay. But for NSSF, it's worse. Because what is happening, they have turned NSSF into an ATM, where you just go put your ATM, you get the money. Just put your ATM, you get the money.
Charles, there is a misrepresentation by my brother Ebwalu, Honorable and Honorable Semuju. Because, you know, this is the double jeopardy in government, that when you have ministers arrested and you put them in Luzira, instead of being credited for doing the right thing, people begin accusing you because they use that as evidence that ministers are stealing. Because when God gave the 10 commandments, he did not prevent people from sinning. He gave the commandments and expects people to comply, or the believers or the followers. But he does not stop them from doing so. So if Honorable Kenya was incarcerated in Luzira, that shows you the government's commitment on fighting corruption. And that's what you keep calling on government to do. When people have been arrested, like Mr. Jamwa, who is in Luzira right now, it's not a confirmation that government is corrupt.
I think
it is a confirmation that government is doing what it can in order to fight corruption.
The Honorable Dombo ought to respect people who are watching this television. You were in Parliament when you censored Kutesa. you censored Jim Mwezi. Were they not reappointed? This Global Fund saga, Kaboyo confessed to have taken money of Gavi. Instead of putting in
Global Fund and Gavi are two different.
I'm talking about Gavi.
Yes.
She confesses that I took the money. Instead of taking her to Ruzira, she becomes Minister for Royal Triangle. So that's not how an institution that is seeking credibility behaves. That Parliament points at a person and you were part of those who said these people are wrongdoers. And immediately, and that's what I was telling Parliament this time when they were talking about the Honorable, was it Namuganza? And I asked them that in the past, people have been censored here. Before you go home, they have returned. So what are you going to do to ensure that this time when you censor someone, they are not returned? So this government cannot clean itself. It is just too dirty.
Charles.
It's simply not possible.
Charles, with due respect to...
Before you come back, let me, the Minister was looking for the bit about the 1.8 billion. I'd like to read the extract from the report. It's under number 8. Yep. Whereas the committee appreciates Mr. Richard Byarugaba and the entire management of NSSF for their effort in growing the fund from shillings 1.7 trillion in 2010 to Uganda shillings 17.3 trillion as at the end of fourth quarter of 2022. The committee notes their involvement in the initiation of the 1.8 billion concealed under corporate social responsibility investment or stock investment. 250 million to board chairman, 250 million to the minister responsible for labor, 500 million to the board members, and 800 million to the unions. Where they justified before the committee that they did it because of pressure from the board members to make donations as an investment for stakeholders. The committee notes that their justification of succumbing to pressure to commit an illegality is no defense to criminal liability. The committee therefore recommends that the NSSF management that participated in the initiation of this Uganda shillings 1.8 billion budget for donations, much as they did not participate in the final approval. MD Richard Byarugaba, Deputy MD Patrick Ayota, CFO Mr. Stevens H. Mwanje, Head of Marketing and Corporate Affairs Ms. Barbara Arimitedi, should step aside with immediate effect for investigations by the Office of the IGG for the offenses of abuse of office, corruption, and conspiracy to commit a felony, with a view of immediate prosecution. Honourable Minister, this doesn't say whether the money was released or not.
It was not. It was initiated.
Well, what I've just read doesn't say whether it was released or not. It's not clear on that. Honourable Dombo, you're concluding your submission.
No, I was just concluding on the effort, because it was becoming a political observation by my colleagues that government is corrupt, and this is a demonstration that's corrupt. But running government does not prevent people from getting tempted. And you don't know who is going to be tempted next. The question is that when they get tempted, what do you do as a government? When you have realized that people have gotten tempted, that's the best thing that must be done.
Okay, let me take a message. Let me take a message from Job Richard Matua, one of the petitioners. He says, it is very embarrassing to see Honorable Minister Betty Amongi Ongom being witch-hunted by the mafia that has been feasting on workers' money. That Parliament committee was set to humiliate Honorable Minister and recommend reappointment of Mr. Richard Byarugaba. My passionate submissions before the Select Committee and prayers that they lay the net wider that turned things upside down for them. Honorable Minister Betty Amongi is innocent, otherwise I would have condemned her properly if I found evidence to the numerous accusations on her. There is no evidence.
But
stop witch-hunting.
What do you expect from that man there called Batua? Yeah. That is the man who was sent by the minister to go and represent her in the committee. So what do you expect from Batua?
You're making an allegation, the minister will respond.
Yes, she will respond. She will respond.
Let's take a break.
Batua was just proxy minister there. He was representing the interests of minister.
NBS Frontline.
Paying your bills the old way.
Let's go, let's go. Just need to buy some power.
Paying your bills with the My Airtel app.
Bro, there's a line.
You have the power in your pocket. The power to instantly pay your bills hassle-free. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
Oh, you're back.
In the heart of Arua City is an oasis of class and comfort. Welcome to Hotel Le Confidential, Aruba's hidden gem and a hub of world-class service. Hotel Le Confidential is a boutique hotel like no other. Voted Uganda's best new hotel at the Ekuka Awards 2022. Our amazing rooms come with air conditioning for internet and breakfast. Take a dip in our outdoor pool, relax at the spa, enjoy a tasty bite from our wide array of delicacies, or simply spend an incredible evening here just to wake up to the gorgeous green of Aruba and so much more. We are open 24 hours to serve you. Hotel La Confidential, a place of serenity, peace, and love.
Hello, I'm Engineer Irene Kagwa. I'm the Acting Executive Director of Uganda Communications Commission. Tech is my life. Tech is an opportunity for development. Tech is an opportunity to create. Tech is an opportunity and it's work for me. We are in a constantly changing and evolving industry. So for me, it is a continuous opportunity to see how to cope with the change, how to harness the new opportunities that technology brings and how to bring those benefits to the rest of Uganda so that Uganda is positioned not down there, but we also want to play in the club of everybody else. So we facilitate academic research and innovation and even other innovators. We want to empower grassroots persons with skilling, so we give them digital skilling, we give them awareness, and we also see how to facilitate them, even if it means a small push in terms of financial support. The technology or the ICT sector, for that matter, is very interesting. It is one of those where traditionally, because it started off with the heavy engineering, they used to look at it as not a women's world. So it's not an industry that is only for the men. Women can do and also do perform well, and sometimes even outdo their counterparts. There is space for everybody. We need everybody to be around the table. Let's not leave anyone behind. Let's work together and build a better Uganda for the future generation.
Brought to you by NBSFrontline.
You're still watching NBS Frontline. It's hot on and off the air. We're discussing the report of the Parliament Select Committee on the National Social Security Fund. This is a very emotive discussion because workers out there, my phone is flooded with messages from so many different people. Many I don't know. Julius Buchana is saying, why are you sacrificing Biarugaba over pension towers, which started during the reign of Chandi Jamwa 12 years ago? Why
no, pension towers, the period that we are looking at is the period that Byarugaba participated in the procurement. Because the first was when Rocco handled it. That contract with Rocco was concluded. Then later, when Byarugaba became the MD, he initiated a new contract with the Chinese company. Yes.
Okay. You had unresolved issues from Alcon. Have you found the title for the land of Workers' House itself? Alcon took...
Not yet. They are working on it.
There was an Alcon that was supposed to be constructing Workers' House. Then they discovered the Alcon that was claiming the money was a different Alcon.
They
went to court.
How many Alcons?
You see, the Alcon in Kenya that was doing construction, the owner died. One of the sons continued with the company. The Ugandan mafia went for the son who was not involved in any construction and made him register Alcon International. Now they brought it, waiving it, that this is the one that is doing construction in Kenya. They even presented buildings that it had built, yet they are the ones who registered it. So it is the one that was responsible.
Was claiming money?
Yes.
For Workers' House.
After that, they also registered now Alcon Uganda. So they became 3. Where they brought a Muyindi, they picked him on the street and dressed him like a singer and said, this is the contractor, the manager, but he cannot speak Luganda, and started speaking a language that they were not understanding in the meeting.
That he cannot speak English?
Yeah, and in the meeting he was speaking a language nobody understood. Said, yeah, this is in charge. So that was also theft of grand scale.
Honorable Minister, are you explaining something about the age of retirement and reappointment between Ayota and Byarugaba? I'd like to speak to that, but also tell Ugandans and the savers of NSSF, what will it take to get out of this mess? We've taken it back to Alcon International, and that was Workers' House. Now it has followed into pension towers.
It's about 30 years ago.
Yes. What is the problem? First, finish with
the issue. Like I had started explaining, the appointment of the 2, I got interpretation from Solicitor General and Public Service stating that the 2, having attained 60 years, could no longer be engaged on full term, but on contract not exceeding 3 years. Yota's contract was ending in October, but Richard's contract was ending in December. Because of that interpretation, and Yota's contract had ended, I gave him 1 year and wrote a letter explaining the scenario that these 2, they have done well, but have been advised that they can no longer serve for 5 more years. So I am requesting for permission to engage them on contract. So the reply I got is that let us meet. So we had the consultation. When we had the consultation, Prime Minister, Vice President, and others, the President said, and others, that the 1 year continues, but let the board go and look at the others, the issue of transition based on the earlier advice. So they went and gave 3 years. Now, while we were on 3 years and trying to process, this is when all these other issues started happening, before even the contract of Richard expired. And we started now consulting on both the renewal and the petitions against Richard. So while we were still on the 3 years, that is when Attorney General then came back to say the new law only stipulates 5-year term twice. The Act does not provide for age. So whether they are 60 years, whether they are 70 years, so long as the minister and the board feels that they are competent, they can be employed. So that is when the board went back
and gave you a recommendation
and rescinded the 3 years for both of them and gave them both 5 years. And at that point, I was already guided that there's a need for us to validate the petitions and allegations against Richard, and we agreed that let him stay at home, and we have a time frame within which we conclude his investigation. And it was very clear that that position should not be filled until investigation into his matter is concluded. That's why you see that position is not filled. It was deliberate.
Charles. Yes. So there was a second bit of the question about what will it take to get the fund function normally?
This should be a question that we process through the internal processes of government. As a person, I cannot answer to save us to say this is what I'm going to do, this, because for us, we work through structure that give you technical advice to say if there's been this problem, this is the other option of governance, this is the other option of technical aspect, and this is what we can do. Do we go private? Do we go mix? So all of that, I think with this investigation and the report of Parliament, the IGG report will come, the Auditor General's report, I'm sure they will make provision for certain reforms. And based on that, my role will be to process it through the technical, the top policy management up to cabinet.
Chris Oboro is watching us, and he says government contributes to NSSF through government employees on contract. Thank you, Chris, for that.
Charles,
yes.
I wanted, going forward, one of the things I've noted about government agencies and corporations in Uganda is that we have boards, but we don't have any body charter for any of the organizations. There is no...
Some have charters.
There is no... There are very few. For instance, URSB. I know a few agencies like the URSB has got a body charter, clearly spelling out what the board can do or may not do, what the management should do, which is a no-go area, and where the areas of intersection and how governance could go forward. I will want to find out from the social NSSF whether there is a body charter which clearly shows what they should be. Secondly, a pension fund is a highly professional where you are going to deal with the funds for investment. Their investment trustees are trained. Right now there are colleges internationally or areas of seminars where trustees are trained so that they are certified. That when you are going to get a trustee who is going to have a fiduciary responsibility to look after savers' money, it must be somebody with certain competences that must have been confirmed. But I would also like to get a clarification from the members of Parliament. When I was reading this report, I saw recommendations, but I didn't know the basis of the law on which these recommendations were based. Because they said there must be a life audit. I saw a lifestyle audit. There were two recommendations about lifestyle. The first one was because there were inconsistencies within the compliance. And then the other was about Mr. Byarugaba. That Mr. Byarugaba, there must be a life audit. I don't know whether Parliament has ever passed a law about lifestyle audit and what you'd be looking at. Do you take measurement the size of the stomach? Do you look at to somebody?
Then you will give them
to somebody who has been like Mr. Byarugaba, earning perhaps more than 50 million shillings. I don't know how much, but something like that. What type of lifestyle audit are you going to take?
What kind of lifestyle do you want him to live?
You want him to live so that you make a recommendation like this. And what would be the basis in law? So I read the report. Then I said perhaps a member of Parliament...
It's an important point to point out. But one of the viewers here sent the comparison of the numbers, and I think the Minister agrees, that in a period of 10 years, the fund has moved from a 1.7 trillion fund to an almost 18 trillion fund. So if you're asking questions about the competence of management and growing the fund, I think that's a tremendous growth, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but you see, the question all of you are not answering, what did they do to grow it? NSSF money, 78%. The other day we were on a radio station. 70% of NSSF
is collection.
is in bonds. In Kenya, they're investing in assets. But in Uganda, they went for the lazy one. That's why I was choosing Yota, that you guys are just lazy. So you just go and buy bonds and go home and sleep. So I want someone to tell me in specific terms, what did they do to grow the fund?
Is the failure...
It's like giving birth to a child, you don't feed the child, and the child is just growing by itself, and then you take the credit.
Some people have argued before and said, aren't NSSF's hands tied because of the much scrutiny that we put on it, that they can't basically do anything outside because everybody's having their eyes on it or on NSSF and is scared about where they might put the money.
That's part of the problem. In Tanzania, the pension fund is actually not only NSSF. They are using money for pension fund. They took a decision as a country that instead of borrowing money from China and you pay 5-6% interest, you'd rather borrow your own money and pay 12% interest. That's a decision they took as a country. The government of Uganda hasn't taken a decision. In fact, what happens is that NSSF is going to put money in commercial banks, and then the following day, government will be borrowing to pay salaries. Because they also don't have money to run a government. They keep borrowing about 7 to 8 trillion shilling from commercial banks. And part of that money is NSSF money, but NSSF has safely invested it there. And that's why I don't want the managers to take credit for what they have not done. Just tell me that, oh, this they did. Because bonds, even if you didn't go to school, you can go and...
So what grew the fund by that percentage?
It grew by itself.
Charles,
can I answer?
The growth of the fund is based on 2 factors. The first one is collection.
Yes.
The second one is investment.
And
when you look at this total amount of money, you'll see that the biggest component that has grown this fund
it's
from
bonds.
1.8 trillion. No, not even bonds. It is collections. Because the number of companies which...
But you also
which see, when you read all reports of Auditor General, at one time they have had 2 million people who are registered. But every year, the ones that are paying annually are not more than 600,000.
Yes.
Let me actually give you...
The supervisor is here.
Yeah, if you read my dossier, the 19th page, you will get all the answers. But to summarize, for the last 5 or so years, the numbers of workers have stagnated at 1.3 million. On the system is 2 million, but the one that are paying is 1.3 million. Out of the 1.3 million, 630,000 pay monthly. Then 690,000 are dormant account. And investments, 7% real estate, about 12% on stock, the rest on bonds.
Fixed income.
So Honorable Minister, by those numbers, the reason you don't have Kampala burning all over because of NSS money is because only 600,000 of us are contributing money and we don't have the time to go and put a lot more pressure on you, isn't it?
So the question I was asking these people is that, number one, you need to increase the number. And in all my statement, I give the statistics of the expansion of employed Ugandans, which in the private sector is now about 12 million. In the rest, broadly, is about 19 million. So if we have growth of those that are employed, maybe those who can contribute can be around 4 to 5 million, which qualifies.
The question then is, if at 18 trillion, 17.8 trillion, almost the NSSF alone is almost at parity with the national recurrent budget, 22 trillion?
No.
Yes. Yes, about 22 trillion.
About that, yeah.
Almost. If you only doubled the number and managed to collect from those who are on the book, the active ones, at 1.3, you'd surpass.
And for me,
would you be able to manage that? Is there confidence that from supervision to immediate management to the board, would you manage that fund?
Yes, you would, because even in my dossier, I give proposal that which actually the MD does not buy. He doesn't believe in what Semuju is saying, that you can use the money for development, like infrastructure, like hospital, like education, and so on. And most countries' studies have shown that for countries that have reached middle income, they have reached at least a minimum of 30% of savings. So and most of the savings is collected through their pension fund. And that money is used for development projects.
Okay.
Because you just have to compute how many people will retire in the next 5 years. And you will know how much money you need to borrow in the next 5 years and pay back to make sure that those
when they retire,
collect,
they have...
or make sure you are collecting. So I think capacity, I think Uganda has capacity to manage.
Okay.
It's only how to structure the management.
Frederick Odong has a question for Honorable Ebwalu, and he says, you sound so bitter with Minister Mwangi.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Even I've been wondering.
Are you the Trojan horse for Bukedea?
Oh, Bambi.
Please respond to Frederick Dongo. I think that's what.
I think Frederick is watching me for the first time. I'm not bitter at all.
That's how you look.
That's
I'm
how
not
you
bitter
are.
at all. I am simply asking that where is our money? How are you protecting our money? But I'm not bitter at all. Yeah, that is my that is my auntie.
Yeah,
but I even told you those things happen
to
under finance. You don't want to attack finance. You are still bringing it to me.
I don't need to attack you. I only need to ask you how you're saving, how you're protecting our money. I don't need to. But again, he's saying I'm bitter. Me, I'm not bitter. I am simply asking that how are you protecting our money? Because it is our role to protect the savers. It is our responsibility to protect the people who are saving the money.
There's a question here for the minister to answer, which I think is critical, and government doesn't sometimes pay attention to this. Honorable Minister, you're talking about numbers of contributors stagnating. Over the last 2 years, have you checked how many companies
are closing,
have closed, have laid off workers? You're the Minister for Labour. And how many employers are out there looking for support from government and they can't find it? They don't know where to go.
Supermarkets have closed.
Yes.
Yeah, by the way, that our department receives those who are closing, they are leaving, and those who are coming. But we work with Uganda Investment Authority. We work with Uganda Bureau of Statistics to know the numbers. So at the moment, the numbers employed in industrial park is over 2 million. So if we were to only even work with those in industrial park and add those in plantations, we would be able to raise a minimum of 3 million. And you would
but the question she is not answering as government. I have had a discussion with the Minister for Investment, because part of my constituents as those workers, you will see hundreds of them entering in the morning.
Yeah.
They just give them numbers. They have no contract. They pay them daily. And deliberate, they want to avoid the